The following podcast is a deep, shallow dive production.
Okay, let's go.
Woo, doggy. All right, if there ever was a bonus episode that was needed, today is that day because, man, I got some good feedback from yesterday's episode talking about the new kids on the block. And by the way, I did want to give a shout out to my lifelong friend, Greg Sutyak, the second greatest wiffle ball player to come out of Chesterland, Ohio. Greg said that he really thoroughly enjoyed when I sang Janet Jackson Control, which I won't do again. But what I will do is I'm going to dedicate a little New Kids on the Block to him. So, Greg, this is for you. Oh, 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 oh. The Right Stuff. They actually had a lot of good songs. You know what's cool? Because I use Spotify for podcasters, I actually could insert the real New Kids on the Block song right now. But the problem is when I export this out or when it gets syndicated out, because of rights issues, that song will not play on Apple Podcasts or Google Podcasts. So that would throw off the flow. So I'm not going to do that. All right, listen, let's use that as a segue. The Right Stuff. Do Vivek and Robert F. Kennedy Jr. have the right stuff? You know, I don't know, but let's talk about the feedback that came in yesterday and really delve into these guys a little bit more. I'm going to start with RFK Jr. this time. And I will say this, I had a couple people who were a little critical that I brought up his voice issue. And you know what? Listen, I'm not saying anything bad about it, but again, if you haven't realized so far, I will call a spade on this stuff. And it's hard to listen to him. I'm sorry, it is. And if you can't admit that, then I don't think you're being honest and it's posturing. And again, I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just saying it is difficult to listen to him. And he even says it himself. So I actually did some research on it. And he had an interview with Piers Morgan where Piers basically said, okay, what's up with the voice? And it says, unbothered by the question, Kennedy launched into the story. I had a very strong voice until I was 42 years old. In 1996, I had an injury that caused a neurological disorder called spasmodic dysphonia. And it makes my voice like this. I personally cannot even listen to my own voice. When I go home, I will not listen to this program. By the way, that was about Robert F. Kennedy Jr., not about me, okay, you Weisenheimers. When I go home, I absolutely will listen to this program. I think I end up listening to my podcasts on every platform just to make sure they sound good. So yeah, that was about RFK Jr., not me. Anyway, I do appreciate Robert F. Kennedy Jr. being forthright about it. There were other interviews I saw where he does talk about it. Even though he doesn't give the exact cause, he does talk about it. The other thing that I really applaud Robert F. Kennedy Jr. for, and then definitely Vivek, I think Vivek has put on a masterclass with this, is, you know, they are getting out there and they are talking to everybody. They're going everywhere. I think they've both been on Joe Rogan. They've gone to Bill Maher. They've talked to guys like Russell Brand. You know, they're not just relying on what some of these other candidates, and I'm talking about the more traditional candidates, you know, the Mike Pences of the world, the Chris Christies, even Nikki Haley on the Democrat side. I mean, so far there's really just Marianne Williamson, and I think she's actually, I would group her with Kennedy Jr. and Vivek. You know, they're getting out there and they're talking to different people. They're not just relying on the old school approach of going to the networks and going to the mainstream media. And to me, that's a true sign of the times, and that differentiates them from these other people. That differentiates them from the stereotype, which now is a negative one, about what a politician is. And it's because of what's taken place over the past really, I'll even say the past 6, 7 years, but they are differentiating themselves by looking at new media in order to gain an audience. And again, that's refreshing to me. I'd like to see Mike Pence go on Joe Rogan. You know, let's see how you can handle a real dude asking you questions, not questions that you've probably been prepped on and that you've probably been given in advance. One of my favorite expressions is when somebody tells me that what I said is real talk. And I love that. And that's what we need. We need real talk. And real talk happens when you go on these podcasts and go on these other shows. That's not the traditional mainstream media, not the traditional, debate form, even where again, there's so much preparation and there's so much posturing in not only the questions, but the answers. So to me, what these guys are doing is incredibly smart. It's new media, it's the new age. Vivek has taken that to another level. I truly feel like he has done a master class in teaching people how to build an audience and how to gain, I guess, popularity using the tools that are available in this new day and age. Both of these guys have done a nice job with their Instagrams. I know that Vivek also went down to Florida with a guy named Patrick Bet David, and he did a town hall there, which was fantastic. But again, they're going anywhere and everywhere they're getting invited. Seriously, think about it. Where else are you seeing? I'm going to focus on the Republican side because obviously they have more candidates, but where else are you seeing Mike Pence, Chris Christie, even Tim Scott, who I really like? You're not seeing these guys anywhere in the new media world. Maybe you're seeing them on Fox News, or maybe you're seeing them on, I don't know, even MSNBC or CNBC. I know Tim Scott has gone on The View, which I thought was cool. I definitely, that episode I did watch. But overall, I think that it is becoming very clear that there's two types of candidates. You've got the new school guys, and then you've got the old school guys. And I think America is at a point where we're like, you know what? Give us some new school. Like, we're tired of that old school. It's the same old, same old. I will say something. I guess another thing interesting about Vivek is this dude in like 6 months is on first name, one name status. I don't know how long it took Oprah or Madonna or Messi or any of these guys to get that one name status, but you say Vivek and people know what you're talking about. They know who you're talking about. That's impressive. My goal is to get to the point where you say Ray D and people know people know who you're talking about. You're talking about me. Okay, jumping back into RFK Jr. now, I also give him credit because from again, these are the stories I've read in the mainstream news, so I don't know if it's true or not, but it looks like the rest of his family, his current family might not be happy with, the stances he's taking and the things he's doing and all that jazz. And if that is true, let's take that at face value and say that is true. I give him credit because he doesn't need to be doing this. I'm sure the guy has a good life. He's married to Cheryl Hines from Curb Your Enthusiasm, hilarious show. And, I'm sure he's got plenty of money. He doesn't need to put himself under this scrutiny. He doesn't need to add this layer of stress and anxiety to his life. And by the way, it's gotta be incredibly stressful doing what these guys are doing. So for Robert F. Kennedy Jr., I really do give him credit for taking this on when he could probably just, live an amazing life and not put himself through this scrutiny and this examination and put himself under this microscope. So just to conclude on those two guys, again, obviously we need to find out more information about them. I want to really understand when it comes to policies and the issues where their stance is, but as of right now, again, I find them very refreshing, and I see nothing wrong with having two people who are not seasoned politicians, who are not politicians by nature, or more importantly, career politicians. Those are the most dangerous ones to me. Those people have decided to make politics their business, okay? Politics is their business, and those are the ones we should be the most worried about, the career politicians, because they're just trying to survive. They will go administration to administration and they're surviving. I'm talking about people like Lindsey Graham, and some of you might not like this, but the Nancy Pelosi's of the world. You know, people that have been in politics for 30, 40, 50, 60 years. Come on. That's just insane. They're survivors. All right, the last thing I want to talk about today is something that I think is incredibly important and relevant, and that's transparency. We've had such a lack of transparency over the past few years. We just have. Come on, you've got to admit that. There's been a lack of transparency. And the reason I know that is because life is different. Life is different. This world is a different place. And again, I know I've hinted toward this, but I'm going to tease it again. The day after Trump won the election in 2016, that was the first day of the beginning of a new plan that started getting hatched. And again, I'm going to talk about this thoroughly in another episode. But at the end of the day, if you want to even take it to 2020, life is totally different since 2020. It's a different world. All right, well, there you have it. Another little bonus episode building on the previous one. I think it's a good discussion. I think we got to keep it going. And I hope everybody enjoys their weekend. And remember, just like we did in this episode, hopefully, call a spade a spade. All right, everybody. Talk to you soon.
This episode was brought to you by Boost Liquid Vitamins. Wake up, take your Boost, start your day. Drink your vitamins, build your immune system with Boost. Available on Boost.com.